I'm Maria Dalton, and I'm about to turn 25 this year. I've been happily married for 3 years, and my son Martin just celebrated his fourth birthday. When I first got married, I worked full-time, but now I work part-time at the same company. My husband, Kevin, is 30 years old, so he's 3 years older than me. Our journey from dating to marriage started with Kevin's passionate advances. However, after we got married, I noticed a change in his behavior. He became more controlling. Kevin has a 20-year-old sister named Jane Dalton. They have a big age gap, and Kevin tends to spoil her. Before we got married, I didn't mind Jane's frequent visits and thought they got along well. However, after our wedding, I started noticing changes in her behavior. Jane often drops by unannounced at any time and expects to be served, never bringing any token of appreciation. Despite Jane's changes, Kevin expects me to accommodate her demands. Jane acts like I'm invisible, only addressing Kevin with a casual, "Brother, I'm here again." Even if I haven't prepared for an additional guest, I end up serving dinner to Jane. Kevin, instead of understanding, blames me and insists I should have been more considerate. Although Jane apologizes verbally, it's clear she enjoys Kevin's preferential treatment. I often end up with leftovers, preparing my own meal while Kevin and Jane chat on the sofa, leaving the dining table messy. They never acknowledge Martin or me, treating us more like hired help than family. One evening, as I was about to take a bath with Martin, Kevin interrupted loudly, instructing me to buy a cake for Jane, despite it being late. Jane insisted on having it immediately. Kevin blamed me for the delay, so I reluctantly headed to the cake shop with Martin in tow. Overhearing their conversation, I learned they were criticizing me for being inconsiderate and questioning Kevin's decision to marry me. Meanwhile, Martin, though unable to grasp their words, sensed the tension in our relationship. Suppressing my emotions, I asked him about his cake preference, and he cheerfully requested one with lots of fruits. Our trip to the cake shop was filled with discussions about cakes, momentarily pushing aside Kevin's harsh words. We arrived just before closing time and fortunately found the cake Jane desired. We purchased 2 cakes, including the fruit-loaded one Martin wanted. Back home, I served the cakes to Jane and Kevin, then prepared Martin's cake and headed to the dining room. As soon as I placed it in front of Martin, Jane pointed and expressed her desire for that cake. Before I could react, Kevin moved Martin's chosen cake in front of Jane, disregarding Martin's protests. Kevin justified his action by claiming he bought the cake with his earnings and had the right to choose. Unable to contain my emotions any longer, I voiced my dissatisfaction. In response, Kevin threatened me with divorce. Martin, who had stopped crying, anxiously held my hand and then, after some thought, said, "Mom, I also love cake with strawberries on it." "Yes, it's really delicious," while eating the cake Jane initially wanted. Feeling that Martin was enduring too much, I lifted his cake plate just as Jane reached for it. I took Martin to the next room to protect him from further distress, so he could enjoy his cake in peace. Kevin apologized to Jane, saying he was sorry for being stingy. Despite wanting to retort, I held back for Martin's sake. Watching Martin innocently enjoy his cake was a heartwarming sight. After finishing the cake, we decided to have a late bath and sleep in Martin's bed. The next morning, I discovered Jane had already left. As I prepared breakfast, I heard Martin crying. Shockingly, his piggy bank, a gift from my father, was broken and the saved money was gone. Martin, who always said good night to the piggy bank, was heartbroken. When I questioned Kevin about it, he casually mentioned that Jane needed some money, so she took it from the piggy bank. Holding a crying and shaking Martin, I felt his pain so acutely that I cried with him. It was painful to witness Kevin prioritizing and caring for his sister more than our son. Expressing my anger and sadness, I confronted Kevin, breaking my usual silence on arguments in front of Martin. Without a word, Kevin went to the bedroom and returned with something shocking in hand: divorce papers. I discovered the hidden divorce papers that Kevin had tucked away somewhere. In a sudden burst, he confronted me, shoving the papers at me before storming out of the house with a loud bang. Martin, who had never cried over the issues with Kevin and Jane, seemed to have reached his limit, crying since last night. Unable to bear seeing Martin so hurt, I suggested skipping daycare for the day, and he happily agreed with a loud yes, showing a faint smile. We spent the day playing and bonding. Martin brought a picture book from the shelf, sat on my lap, and happily remarked, "The teacher at the nursery today was Mama, right?" He looked like an angel. His little heart seemed filled with patience. I decided to make the day special by taking a day off from work. Despite causing potential trouble at my workplace, they kindly understood the situation and granted me a day off. In the morning, we visited the park, played hide and seek, and had fun in the sandbox and on the slide. When we returned home for lunch, Martin appeared sleepy. Usually, he napped by himself, but today he fell asleep on my lap, just like when he was a baby. Though I initially thought of doing household chores during his nap, I decided that today was special. Instead, I allowed myself to be healed by his peaceful sleeping face and gentle breathing. However, my serene moment was abruptly interrupted by a noise from the entrance, indicating the front door had opened. As it wasn't Kevin's usual time to come home, I became suspicious. I quickly hid in the bedroom closet, clutching Martin. A voice echoed through the house, and to my surprise, it was Jane. Trembling with fear, I listened as she searched for something, expressing frustration over not finding it. Jane then made a phone call, mentioning Kevin and discussing their unsuccessful search. After hearing her lock the front door and leave, I put Martin to bed and contemplated the strange events. I couldn't comprehend why Jane had entered the house and what they were looking for. Suddenly, Kevin seemed like a stranger, and I felt a mix of disgust and fear towards him. Swiftly packing essentials for Martin and myself, we headed to the station and took a train to my parents' house. Fortunately, their home was nearby, just 2 stations away. Although I hadn't contacted them beforehand, my parents sensed something from my expression and welcomed us without asking questions. I shared the entire ordeal with my parents, including my fear of staying at our house due to Kevin and Jane's actions. Upon hearing my story, my mother suggested that Jane might have been looking for my belongings, possibly cash or cards. This made sense, especially given my past experience as a successful CEO in the handmade goods industry. I had entrusted the company to friends when I decided to prioritize raising my child after getting married. Although I still worked part-time and communicated with the company from home, Kevin was unaware that I was still the CEO. I discovered the hidden divorce papers that Kevin had tucked away. I suspected that he thought I had a decent amount of savings. While I've mentioned to him that I still receive some assistance from the company, I've deliberately kept the details about being the CEO and my savings private. This secrecy stems from realizing early in our marriage that Kevin struggles with managing money and tends to spend everything he earns. Kevin at first provided only $200 a month for food expenses and even suggested I quit my job to become a full-time housewife. However, with the financial strain of raising Martin and only $200 for food, I never agreed to be a full-time housewife. Eventually, he reluctantly allowed me to work part-time. To ensure I wouldn't consider divorce, Kevin had me sign a post-marital property waiver through a lawyer. Since Martin's birth, I used my savings for his nursery fees and clothes, as I've only received $200 for food. I've never asked Kevin for additional funds beyond the food budget, leading him to believe I have savings. Considering Jane's apparent need for money and Kevin's perception of my financial situation, they might be searching for my cash cards. I have a separate savings account dedicated to Martin, with a portion of my salary directly deposited into it each month. Despite their search, they won't find the cash cards as I always carry my valuables with me. However, there's still an unsettling issue. Jane might be entering our house even when we're not there, and Kevin may be allowing it. Following my father's advice, I decided to store my valuables, including the cash cards, in my parents' safe. As I pondered their need for money, Martin approached my father, crying over his broken piggy bank and the shattered promise of saving up. My father, angered by Martin's story, vowed to call Kevin. My mother suggested finding out their purpose calmly, as Kevin's mention of divorce might shift blame to us, making the divorce more favorable for him. To ascertain their purpose, I decided to record their conversation. Consulting a lawyer who is a friend of my father's, I returned home and began cooking dinner, keeping my phone screen down to record secretly. Kevin arrived home, surprising me by immediately asking about my cash cards. When I questioned him, he gave vague answers, attempting to deceive me. When I remained silent, Kevin grew agitated and demanded all my part-time money for his sister. Refusing, I explained it was for Martin's savings. In response, he angrily pushed the signed divorce papers toward me, declaring that I was living off his money and didn't need to save for Martin. He even uttered words implying he valued Jane more than our son. Hearing this, I stopped preparing the meal, put the divorce papers in my bag, took Martin's hand, and headed for the door. Kevin, in a loud voice, declared his serious intent for divorce, instructing me never to come back. I responded by stating I wouldn't return to a house where a stranger could come and go freely. After leaving, I received numerous messages and calls from Kevin, which I ignored. Turning off my phone, I sought refuge at my parents' house, sharing the recording and divorce papers with them. Although I confessed to having no love or affection for Kevin, I expressed concern for Martin. My parents advised me to do as I pleased, acknowledging the potential emotional impact on Martin if a divorce were to occur. While grappling with the decision to divorce Kevin, Martin expressed his hunger. My mother, seeing my distress, kindly made hamburgers, his favorite dish. Overwhelmed with emotions, tears welled up in my eyes as my mother told Martin with a warm smile that she prepared the hamburgers so that he and I could visit whenever we wanted. Taking a bite, Martin exclaimed with joy, praising Grandma's hamburgers and expressing a desire to eat them every day. I responded, saying it's because the hamburger contains the love I have for him. In a touching gesture, he took a big bite and offered it to me. Moved by Martin's kindness, my tears couldn't be held back, and even though I tried to stop them, they persisted. My father, noticing Martin's concern, reassured him that my tears were of happiness, not sadness. Hearing this, Martin, in a moment of understanding, hugged me, and my father's eyes turned bright red. Realizing the blessing of being with family, I remarked to Martin that family is precious. Surprised, he questioned if Dad had mentioned that only Jane was family. My father gently confirmed it, but then asked Martin if he wanted to live with them as family. With a laugh, Martin happily agreed, making everyone smile naturally. Despite contemplating divorce, the meal felt so happy that I finally decided to part ways with Kevin. I planned to inform Martin about it, and even though discussing it weighed heavily on my heart, Martin seemed to grasp the situation. Happily, he expressed the desire to live as a family, embracing the pet dog and calling him his younger brother, despite the dog being older. Preparations for the divorce began, starting with contacting a lawyer who was a friend of my father's. The next day, we formalized the contract, and my father and Martin shared comforting laughter while I lay in bed reminiscing about my childhood. The following day, upon checking my smartphone, I found over 200 calls and messages from Kevin, showcasing his emotional instability. Exhausted, I turned off my phone. With the lawyer's assistance, we explained the situation to my parents. Jane had accumulated significant debt from a casino and shopping addiction, and Kevin acted as her guarantor, planning to use my savings. The lawyer confirmed that the divorce papers had already been submitted, and Kevin sobbed upon realizing it was finalized. Despite expecting disagreements about child support, he signed a pledge to pay $340 to Martin every month. In a subsequent call from Kevin, his tone lacked aggression, and he calmly admitted to financial manipulation and explained his complex feelings toward Jane. I firmly asserted my decision not to reconsider and heard his faint sobbing before he wished me happiness and hung up, remaining strong until the end. Embracing the new chapter in our lives, Martin and I settled into a peaceful routine at my parents' house. My parents provided unwavering support, ensuring Martin felt loved and secure. The warmth of family enveloped us, and slowly, the shadows of past turmoil began to fade. Martin thrived in this nurturing environment, and I found solace in the loving embrace of my family. Together, we embarked on a journey of healing and new beginnings, cherishing every moment of our newfound happiness. I discussed future plans with my parents and decided to stay with them until Martin grows up. Resuming my role as the company president, I found a renewed sense of purpose and stability. Later, I learned that Kevin and Jane had informed their parents about the divorce and the debt, which resulted in their disownment. Today, I find happiness being with my family. Living with my parents has provided a safe and nurturing environment for Martin. He thrives with the constant love and attention from his grandparents, and I feel a profound sense of relief knowing he is in a stable home. Returning to my role as president of the handmade goods company has been empowering. My colleagues welcomed me back with open arms, and I found joy in reconnecting with my passion for the business. Balancing work and family life has been challenging but deeply rewarding. Martin often spends his days playing in the garden with our dog, his younger brother, and enjoying his grandmother's delicious meals. My parents' home is filled with laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to the tense environment we left behind. Despite the initial struggles, our days are now filled with simple joys and meaningful moments. My parents and I often sit together in the evenings, sharing stories and planning for the future. Martin's laughter echoes through the house, a constant reminder of the love and support that surrounds us. Reflecting on our journey, I realize how far we've come. The pain and uncertainty of the past have been replaced by a strong sense of security and hope. Our family bonds have grown stronger, and we face each day with renewed strength and optimism. In the end, the challenges we faced only made us more resilient. I am grateful for the unwavering support of my parents and the opportunity to create a loving and stable home for Martin. Together, we look forward to a bright future, filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. I discussed future plans with my parents and decided to stay with them until Martin grows up. Resuming my role as the company president, I found a renewed sense of purpose and stability. Later, I learned that Kevin and Jane had informed their parents about the divorce and the debt, which resulted in their disownment. Today, I find happiness being with my family. Living with my parents has provided a safe and nurturing environment for Martin. He thrives with the constant love and attention from his grandparents, and I feel a profound sense of relief knowing he is in a stable home. Returning to my role as president of the handmade goods company has been empowering. My colleagues welcomed me back with open arms, and I found joy in reconnecting with my passion for the business. Balancing work and family life has been challenging but deeply rewarding. I am able to work from home a few days a week, allowing me to spend quality time with Martin while ensuring the company continues to thrive. Martin often spends his days playing in the garden with our dog, his younger brother, and enjoying his grandmother's delicious meals. My parents' home is filled with laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to the tense environment we left behind. Martin has started attending a nearby preschool, where he has made new friends and is learning new things every day. His teachers often comment on his cheerful disposition and eagerness to help others. Despite the initial struggles, our days are now filled with simple joys and meaningful moments. My parents and I often sit together in the evenings, sharing stories and planning for the future. Martin's laughter echoes through the house, a constant reminder of the love and support that surrounds us. On weekends, we enjoy family outings to the park or local museums, creating cherished memories together. Reflecting on our journey, I realize how far we've come. The pain and uncertainty of the past have been replaced by a strong sense of security and hope. Our family bonds have grown stronger, and we face each day with renewed strength and optimism. My parents have been a pillar of support, providing guidance and comfort during challenging times. They often remind me of the importance of self-care and encourage me to take time for myself, whether it's reading a book, going for a walk, or simply relaxing with a cup of tea. In the end, the challenges we faced only made us more resilient. I am grateful for the unwavering support of my parents and the opportunity to create a loving and stable home for Martin. Together, we look forward to a bright future, filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. Martin often talks about his dreams and aspirations, and I am committed to supporting him in every way possible. Whether he wants to be an astronaut, a teacher, or an artist, I will be there to encourage and guide him. As we move forward, I am determined to provide the best life possible for Martin. I have started saving for his college education and am exploring various extracurricular activities that he might enjoy. From music lessons to sports, I want him to have the opportunity to discover his passions and develop his talents. The support from my friends and colleagues has also been invaluable. They have offered words of encouragement, practical advice, and even a helping hand when needed. Their kindness and generosity have reinforced my belief in the goodness of people and the importance of community. I have also reconnected with some old friends, and we often arrange playdates for our children. These gatherings have been a source of joy and a reminder that we are not alone on this journey. Sharing experiences and exchanging tips with other parents has been incredibly helpful and reassuring. In this new chapter of our lives, I am focused on building a future where Martin can grow up feeling loved, supported, and confident. I am committed to being the best mother I can be, while also taking care of my own well-being. The road ahead may have its challenges, but with the love and support of my family, I am confident that we can overcome anything together. We continue to cherish the small moments that bring us happiness, a sunny day in the park, a bedtime story, or a family movie night. These moments remind us of the simple joys in life and the strength of our family bond. As we look to the future, we do so with hope, gratitude, and a deep sense of love for one another.